Good morning, everybody. My name is June Bauer, and this is the Grid Dynamics webinar, How to Effectively Earn Customer Loyalty. We're so happy to have you all join us today and really appreciate that you've taken the time out. I think you're going to be excited to hear our very amazing panel of experts talk today about loyalty programs. I want to remind you that there is a Q&A, and you can feel free to put a question in there at any time. I see someone has already put a really great question in there, and our panelists can answer the question in the Q&A, and some of them we may ask out loud as well. So please feel free to participate that way. We'd love to get your questions. We'll hold any questions that we ask out loud till the end of the webinar, but feel free to put them into the Q&A box now. We're so excited to have our panel today, and I would like to start by introducing them. So if we can go to the next slide. We are going to cover mainly topics and questions for our panel today. We'll have our panelists introduce themselves in just a minute, and then we'll go through to our discussion. So can we go to the next slide, please? Here are our major amazing panelists. Why don't we start on the right-hand side with Maria? So would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning. Thank you for having me, June, and thank you to the Grid Dynamics team. My name is Maria Zororovich. I'm with Intel Internet of Things Group, and I lead customer experience within our health and life sciences and emerging technology teams, which are really focused again on how we bring together a great holistic experience, whether it's our industry customers, our partners, or developers. I'm excited to be here and be able to share some thoughts around loyalty and this important topic of today.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Ramki.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, June, and the Dynamics team for having me here. My name is Ramki Vaidyanathan. I'm a principal product manager with the digital team at Starbucks. How to make coffee an enjoyable experience every day for our customers is at the heart of what I try to do every day, along with my amazing crew of team. At Starbucks, I've been a partner for the last 5 years, and primarily I'm responsible for the acquisition and engagement side of the native apps. So what that means in very simple terms is the end-to-end customer journey, which involves customer being aware of what are the Starbucks digital offerings, then signing up to become a Starbucks rewards member, which is what we call for our which is the name for our loyalty program, and then subsequently them engaging with all of the loyalty and the personalization features are the aspects that I closely manage as part of my tenure in Starbucks. So really excited to be here and happy to learn as well as discuss with you on things related to loyalty.
Fantastic, Ramki. Thank you. And Lubo.
Everyone. So my name is Ljubomir Cvetković, Ljubo for short. I'm VP of Engineering at American Eagle Outfitters. Been with the company for about 8 years. My previous experiences were more in the industrial manufacturing and B2B space. But like I said, for the last 8 years, I've been in retail, and really excited to be here. Thanks for Grid Dynamics for putting this webinar together, because I think the topic of loyalty is very relevant today, and especially with everything that's going on, especially in retail, loyalty and knowing what our customers are and how we reach out to them and how do we gain their loyalty over the course of time is absolutely very important, and I'm glad we're all able to get together and talk about it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lubo. And Eugene.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eugene Steinberg. I'm founding engineer of Grid Dynamics, helped found the company many years ago. So these days, I am heading our digital commerce practice with a lot of focus on all the aspects of e-commerce, and loyalty is obviously one of the probably most important topics is how to know your customer better and how to win their loyalty. So very excited to be here.
It's fantastic, Eugene. Thank you. And I'm June Bauer. I was lucky enough to meet some people from Grid Dynamics and have the opportunity to work with them as a consultant. And I'm very honored to be a part of this webinar today. I started my career at Apple in marketing in 1981, working with Steve Jobs and our very small company at the time, and learned marketing there, and then went on to be vice president of marketing and CMO at many other companies in the Silicon Valley, including companies like Adobe, Cisco, WebEx, and others. So as a marketer, I'm delighted to be here today because customers and customer loyalty is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And I wanted to just kick us off and get us started this morning by talking about a loyalty program that I think is very interesting. And if we can go to the next slide, please. This program was launched during the pandemic. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but Pret, which interestingly enough is a bit of a competitor to Starbucks, although Romke, I mean, clearly not in the league of Starbucks, but essentially during the pandemic, trying to stay alive, launched a really interesting program that caught my eye as a marketer, which is they offered unlimited coffee passes. They were really about to go out of business at the beginning of the pandemic, and they came up with this very clever idea. They didn't have a loyalty program, and they said, let's do this. Let's offer a new way to price and package our service that will get people to come into our stores. So they offered up, people could buy a pass for a month, pay a set price, and get as much coffee as they wanted, all you can drink. They had two flavors of this. They had a black coffees, and then they had the fancy coffees, which you paid a little more for per month. What was really interesting about this program was they designed it to do a couple things. Number one, they designed it to increase in-store traffic. They wanted to get people in the store, and people were going to come in the store a lot to get their value out of this monthly pass, right? You're going to want to come in at least once a day if if you're paying just a flat fee for the month. That would help them because they probably weren't making a lot of money off of the set amount for the coffees if you came in every day. But they counted on you to buy other things in their store. So they offer a lot of sandwiches and snacks and those sorts of things. Also, the only way you could participate in this was by downloading the app. And they created a special app for this. So you had to get the app, which of course is a brilliant strategy in retail because you can now start to communicate as a marketer directly one-on-one with your customers, and you can really understand their behavior at a very granular level. And finally, this helped Pret to differentiate themselves competitively. There's a lot of other, places you can get coffee, and this made it something that was no other store like this was offering this kind of pass. So it was very, very smart. And if we can go to the next slide, they created an app, and when you downloaded the app, you paid through the app, which people really liked during the pandemic. And also you were automatically enrolled in their loyalty program. Let's go to the next slide. And this is a picture of a Pret a Manger or Pret. Now they go by store. That automatically meant when you went into the store and you used your phone, you would see what kinds of things were being offered to you specifically based on your buying habits. And also you'd get special rewards. And let's go to the next slide based on your purchases. And so this is what if you look online or you look on your phone when you download the app, these are the benefits of their loyalty program. So you can pay through the phone, then you earn treats, which are things that you would buy food items in the store. You also get free coffees. So this is what they did. Now, right now, they're in process of changing their program because with a pandemic, hopefully, cross your fingers, coming to an end, they're going to push really heavily on their app now and less so on their pricing and packaging around the monthly fee for coffee. But really smart to drive to the app and to tie their loyalty program to the app. You must absolutely have that app to be enrolled in the loyalty program. So I thought this was a good one to share and very interesting thinking on the part of Pret, and also a very successful program for them. I thought before we launched into our dialogue, I'd just share with you a couple statistics, if we can go to the next slide, about what is happening right now with loyalty programs. And this was a study that Shopify published. You can see that loyalty programs are very powerful. If you don't have a loyalty program, you should really think about it because 84% of consumers are more apt to stick with a brand that offers a loyalty program. 66% of customers say the ability to earn rewards changes their spending behavior. So that's a lot. That's a big percentage. People want loyalty programs, and they're willing to spend more with a brand that offers loyalty, even if a cheaper option exists. And I think that one's really interesting, that last one, because if you think about yourself and your behavior, for example, with well, in the old days when we used to travel by airplane, hopefully it's starting up again. But, so many people would make decisions based on being the loyalty program of an airplane. So, I was always trying to travel on United because, I wanted to get those points. And many times the United tickets were much more expensive than other airlines. But I always tried to stick with it. And I know in most companies that I worked in, people tried to do that. So loyalty programs can be extremely powerful. Let's go to the next slide. And my last slide, I just want to share with you some trends that are going on right now in loyalty programs. So kind of what consumers are expecting and what they want more of. So these are some pretty big changes, and I'm going to guess it might have had to do with the pandemic, although I'm not sure. But people want early access to sales. It's something, I don't know exactly who started it, but I'm thinking maybe it's on my mind. But Nordstrom right now, they're starting their annual sale. And the only way you can essentially get into that sale early is by being a part of the Nordy Club, right? Number 2 is early access to new products. I thought that was an interesting one. And that one could actually help you get a lot of sales momentum going earlier as a manufacturer. And finally, offers and recommendations that are tailored to you. That's gone up as well. And I think there's a real opportunity as we go mobile to be able to do that a lot more effectively and a lot easier as a company offering a loyalty program. So these are some things that are going on now, but let's turn to our panel right now and find out what they're thinking. They're out there getting a lot of experience with loyalty programs. So why don't we just get out of our slides, please, Alex, if you would. And we will go to people's beautiful faces. And I want to kick off the Q&A. So I've got a question for you, which is, I'd love it if you could tell us about a loyalty program that you like and why. And it could be your own if you'd like to talk about that. So let's kick it off. Ramki, would you like to kick it off?
Yeah, sure. So there are, thanks for that great introduction, June, and setting the context there. There are a number of different kinds of loyalty programs that are offered by different retailers, really depending on what's the nature of their customers and what are the kind of businesses they are into. So the first aspect I wanted to call out clearly is there's no one size fits all, right? Everybody needs to figure out what works for their business and what's right for their customers. In terms of my personal preference, I'm going to be a bit biased here and I'm going to vouch for the Starbucks loyalty program. The reason being, I've been a big fan of Starbucks even before I joined the brand more than 5 years back. And since joining Starbucks, I've also been closely involved in shaping a number of iterations of their loyalty program. So that's going to be my personal favorite there. In terms of, before getting into why it is the case, I would like to briefly outline the mechanics of the program and then get into 3 specific reasons on why it's my personal favorite, right? So broadly, in terms of how you earn stars, which is the loyalty currency at Starbucks, and how you burn it or redeem it. In terms of earning, you really earn stars for every purchases you make. And the number of stars you earn is really depending on the payment method that you use. So if you use your regular credit or debit card, you earn at 1 star per dollar. If you use a preloaded stored valued card, or an SVC as we call it, you earn twice as much. And if you use a Starbucks Rewards Visa card, you earn 3 stars per dollar. So that's the basics of how it works. Additionally, you also have additional incentive programs or special moments like Double Star Day, bonus star challenges, which are more on the personalization side of things that helps you earn at an accelerated rate. So that's as far as the earn mechanics is concerned. In terms of how you redeem it, you could redeem these stars for any free food or drink, right? And the way it works is you have a tiered redemption available right now with the more recent iteration of the rewards program, wherein with the 25 stars, you can get a syrup. For a 50 stars, you can get a brewed coffee. With a 150 stars, you can get a handcrafted beverage, etc. So there are also additional perks, such as you get a free drink on your birthday. You just walk in, you get a free drink on your birthday period, right? So that's broadly how the mechanics of the program works. Specifically in terms of why I love the program, there are 3 reasons. So first and foremost is the foundational product involved here, right? So as much as we get excited about loyalty program, the important thing to understand is that loyalty can only be effective only be that effective as strong as your underlying product or brand is. So if your core underlying product is not something that's beloved by customer, it's hard to make a loyalty program that stands on top of it work effectively. So that's the first thing, right? And in that context, coffee is an everyday product. Every customer wakes up and earns for a good cup of coffee. And, I'm truly privileged and fortunate that I get that opportunity to make a difference in a customer's daily life. So as they say, with enough coffee, nothing is impossible, right? So coffee is one of the primary driver in terms of why the loyalty program is working so effectively, and also the power of the Starbucks brand. The second one is the size and scale of the loyalty program. So the Starbucks loyalty program on an average is growing at about 18% year on year. There are close to 24 million active reward members currently who drive 50% of the company revenue. And these members are highly habitual and spend at a higher rate compared to a regular customer. So that's been a big part of the brand retention and the attraction there. And the third aspect is obviously the cross-functional collaboration involved that helps us power this loyalty program. So as part of my day job, I get to work with an amazing bunch of folks from marketing, engineering, design, research, and a variety of technical cross-functional teams towards putting these experiences together. And just that aspect around bringing the collective thoughts to the table and figuring out how best can we serve our customers and our business stakeholders is just an amazing experience. So those are my three reasons on why the program is favorite.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for kicking us off with that program, which if you aren't a member yet, after that little spiel, Ramki, I think everyone's going to want to join. It sounds like there's some great benefits that Starbucks is offering. Maria, how about you? What's a program you like?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the two examples that you gave, that is where a brand has a primary product. That is their product. So I'm going to give a different example where, loyalty to me is a great opportunity when, you're trying to differentiate yourself, particularly when the products that you sell are widely available across your competition. And so loyalty can help create some stickiness in terms of the relationship, particularly when shaped with the values of your customer. So, a couple that come to mind are Sephora, Target. I'll use Target as an example. Again, very much similarly to what has been said with the other two examples, but they have started to seamlessly tie in the purchasing commerce aspect also with the loyalty program and the loyalty benefits, I should say. And where I love Target and where they're kind of pushing into is they're starting to move beyond some of this transactional component in which you're earning points or dollars and you get, price off of merchandise or exclusive, potentially offers for you, which is great. But they're also starting to push into what is valued within their membership or their customers. So for example, there's a community aspect in which you're able to help give feedback to Target to help direct where some of those dollars may go. And I love how it's tied back into the value of Target as a brand, where Target is widely available across a variety of communities. And so there's an aspect there that ties into local community, which to me, starts to take some of those other aspects, what makes that brand unique and differentiates given the product base. And then just one quick piece on like Sephora, very similarly, you have a community that's very specific, widely available product, but the differentiators, of course, are what is unique, what is exclusive in some of those product relationships, what are some of the experiences that can be offered. And I think you mentioned like Nordstrom too, they have that tiering where they can offer some experiences that are not just merchandise-based or offer-based in terms of discounts or early access to product. And I think those elements are really important as we start to look forward and tying up a holistic journey, a holistic brand, and some of that affinity, really pulling it in to be much more seamless with the purchasing aspect, but then also the experiential aspect.
Yeah, that is super interesting, I think. I love your comments, and I love the idea of thinking about differentiation, especially, Pret is a good example of that as well, where they were very undifferentiated. So this loyalty program and pricing and packaging is a way to do that. And I think it's tremendous. I also love the comment you made about the idea of playing to your strengths as a brand and building loyalty programs that really highlight your brand strengths as with Target, because ultimately that's going to help you with differentiation as well. So I think that's fantastic. Definitely something for us to really think about.
Loyalty keeps the brand top of mind, right, for the customer.
It does. It does. Absolutely. I think it's a great point. Why don't we turn to Eugene? Because I know he has a fun story for us to share around a loyalty program that he doesn't like, but I think somebody else in his family does.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk about a couple of them, but I really appreciated the comments which you guys did. Of course, like there is a household loyalty program, Amazon Prime, right? Many of us probably are using it. Everybody is a member and getting the perks. And in my family, like we are not big at loyalty programs in general. I know culturally, historically, I don't know why. But at some point of time, my wife really kind of hooked on the Amazon Prime, and she started to kind of. I saw how her purchasing habits literally like started to change over like week after week, and how she started to spend more on Amazon compared to like other retailers. And the question to that was like, why is that? Why are you doing that? And the answer was like simplicity. First of all, like it's very, very deadly simple. And second is we hooked you on the very good initial promise, and then we start gradually expanding the set of perks so that you feel that you're getting something over time, and that what keeps you hooked. Because of course there is a lot of competition, and when you look like when you're trying to realistically look at it, you always start to think like, is it worth it? And then like a new something arrives, and that kind of what keeps you hooked. This is like one of the examples which I wanted to give. And the second example is Nike, actually. And what I like about the Nike loyalty program is that it's not very transactional. So it's not like they are rewarding you explicitly only for your purchases or like direct revenue opportunities which you're giving them. They are trying to encourage your lifestyle. We are trying to encourage your activities, like your different like behavior, which is eventually leading to using more of the Nike products. And we have always like running apps, which are providing a special bonuses if you run particular kind of distance, or beat your own record, or do something else. Like this is a huge element of gamification there. And second is that like there is a training app which gives you bonuses if you train with them. And when there is a kind of as a reward, there is a sticker app which builds a community around like people who are crazy about like new sneakers, and give them an opportunity for exclusive products. So again, what I like about it is indirect access. Like everybody in the industry, of course, are doing rewards for the direct actions. But what is important, like how you can capture more audience, and how you can reward for the lifestyle, and how you can build community, to your point, Maria, I think is super important in the loyalty programs.
I think that's great. Thank you for sharing that, Eugene. Great examples. I want to turn to Lubo now, because you've been so patient and waiting there. I want to ask you, what are the biggest challenges you've encountered while trying to build your customer loyalty program? And how did you solve those? And did any of it involve cross-functional teamwork? So can you comment on that for us?
Sure, that sounds good. I'm going to use 3 examples, and I'm going to try to be brief because I don't want to take too much time either, right? But the fact that it's one of them is cross-functional team by itself can be a challenge, right? You know, just like any Scrum team, you go through like storming, and performing processes before you can actually show that performing aspects of it. But having a large team that is really needed in order to enable a true loyalty program, you have so many different points of view, you have so many different needs, requirements, you know, priorities, right? So having the right collaboration, setting the right prioritization, and making sure you execute on it is challenging, right? The second example for me was how to build a loyalty program that is not too rich and not too poor for our customers, right? It's a delicate balance that involves marketing needs, who want to provide as many features, functionality, capabilities for our customers, but then your finance was looking at you trying to say, how do we make sure this is not overly rich, or how we're not using, you know, a return on our investment and things of that nature. So to me, that's a very cross-functional and very delicate balance that you have to establish with the teams in order to execute and build something that is valuable to both the company and to your customers. The last one that comes to my mind is security. Actually, the loyalty programs are great, but making sure that the program itself is working as designed. You are not allowing for any hackers to go in and steal all these coupons and rewards and sell them, dark web and things of that nature are extremely important. So finding, again, that balance between making the program usable, easy to use, available to all of your customers and showing that value, but making sure it's also secured and those access to those rewards and points is protected.
Yeah, those are fantastic examples. Thanks for sharing those. Ramki, on the Starbucks side, how have you managed challenges and how have you used cross-functional teamwork to do that?
Yeah, I'll start with where Hugo was mentioning some of his points, and I'll start with the second point, right, in terms of understanding the customer preference. So really, like at the heart of everything we're trying to do with any given loyalty program, it's the customer. And we need to make sure that whatever we are trying to figure out works well for our customers in terms of what their day-to-day needs are and how they function, right? So to that end, the most important thing is to understand the customer preference and tailor a program that works for them. So towards that end, in terms of understanding the customer preference, from a Starbucks standpoint, we have taken a customer-centric approach of working backwards. So what that means is that very early in the program itself, we have taken the help of our research team to really get close to the customer. So as part of this, we interview several customers, understand what their preferences are, and in the subsequent iterations, we work them through different design prototypes in terms of how we are envisioning this, collect real-time feedback from them, and use those inputs to really refine and iterate them. So we took this customer-based study through several rounds of iteration before really zeroing in on what is the solution that we want to move forward with that works for most of our customers, right? So that was something that was really helpful. And the second aspect is also in terms of how we ended up executing this program. So typically, the loyalty programs are huge in size, and to what Lubo was mentioning, it would involve several cross-functional teams. So the way we approach this is that once we had the vision in mind and the customer feedback in place on what's the eventual solution we want to go with, we kind of broke it down into a number of individual pieces that can be shipped, right? So we developed these functional elements in an iterative and an incremental manner from an engineering angle, and we shipped them to production as part of every release. So what ended up happening is that it was an incremental build wherein we were progressively building the product and releasing them to customers by feature flagging what was sensitive, right? So program sensitive things that used to go out only on the launch date were feature flagged, but other aspects which are more foundational to the program we are building got updated every month as we were releasing. So eventually on the day of the launch, it was simply about flipping a switch and making sure that the program lit up. So essentially it turned out to be a very boring launch, as I might call it, boring in the sense that there weren't major events or issues that we had to deal with. And we significantly mitigated the risk as opposed to a big bang approach where everything is deployed on the day of the launch, and there are huge risks that we run into. So that was a big part of the learning in terms of how we learned from the customers on their preference as well as executed them in an incremental fashion.
Yeah, that's a very interesting story and very smart way for Starbucks to manage that risk, because I can imagine it is just an absolutely ginormous program. So that's great.
The best.
Yeah. So let me see. I have another question that I would love to get some feedback from you on, which is this idea of when you create a loyalty program, you're creating customer loyalty and you need to know each customer. It's really critical. So how do you think about the data that you need to know about each customer to make the program successful? And what are some of the challenges in gathering that data and then integrating the data actually into your loyalty program? And maybe we can kick this one off with Lubo.
Sure, that sounds great. So when I think about all the data that you need, I mean, obviously you need as much data as possible. You want to make sure that you're also not collecting, storing anything that's not in your best interest when it comes to kind of personal preferences and things of the nature, right? So you got to be very careful to provide your customers with the ability to opt out of providing any information that they don't want to, right? But in order to make a loyalty program, feature rich and kind of really reach out to the customers in the best way possible, you want to try to understand who your customers are, what their behaviors and patterns and affinities are in order to build that program eventually in the most effective way. So you try to gather as much as you can. Obviously, there's some obvious things you can do, like your first party data, like which is your information about us. What's your customer information? What's the addresses? Where do they buy? What are their purchasing habits and things of the nature? You can collect that because you own that data, as well as the clickstream data. When they come to your website, when they're on your mobile app, when they walk into a store, actually more of a digital perspective, your clickstream data needs to be collected. And then you need a space to put it, right, where you can actually apply some machine learning, predictive analytics in order to derive your marketing campaigns and things of the nature, right? But the challenge is to have the right data strategy and right data architecture, right, to be able to properly collect that data. Where do you store? What are your systems of record for all of the data? What is your operational data stores versus what is your CDP, right? What is your system where that will be collated in order to come back with the right business value and things that you can actually use, like I said, to gather your campaigns and put them in front of your customers. So it's really an all-encompassing data, right, that you have to be able to put together, right? I mean, besides just, like I said, typically your prices, your products, your promotions, your customer data, your order data, things of nature, you need everything else with the behavioral pieces of information, right, to put together the most effective campaigns.
Yeah, and I imagine that it's challenging to take all those data sources and integrate them into something that's actually insights or useful for the team.
Correct. And I think that's the thing that we can talk even more deeper into, which is like, what is the true data architecture and the data strategy that your organization has? And I can dive into that a little bit deeper if you want.
Yeah, I think. Why don't you touch on that for us? I mean, how do you put that data strategy together? I mean, because that seems to be absolutely critical to the success of this kind of a program.
Certainly. So I had to put first two disclaimers out there before I get into that. So first one is, I'll talk a little bit about our data strategy and our data architecture, because our current architecture has, things, something to be desired, right? So we're in the process of changing it because we encountered a couple of flaws in our current thinking. The other one is that when we talk about the loyalty programs, I'd like to, when I talk about data strategy, I want to think about a little bigger than just a loyalty engine. Right, it's a loyalty program that could encompass a lot more than just the engine that does how much points you got and what kind of promotions we're going to give you, right? So those are two things that I'll touch upon and I'll go back and forth, right? So our current data strategy or current data architecture was based off of, we have the operational data stores for the website, for the point of sale, for a mobile app, for a loyalty engine as well. And we were trying to collate the data into what we call a customer hub. And this was an MDM solution, basically, in which we're trying to do some data deduping and try to understand who our customers are and come up with a single point of view for a customer. But the problem is it's a very static database, right, that doesn't take into account a lot of runtime data like the clickstream data, right? So we realized very quickly that, yes, the data is there, we got it, we deduped it, it's all looking nice and clean, right, but it doesn't give us the business value, right? So we're in the process right now from shifting away from that process and building a CDP, right? So CDP, for the people who might not be as well versed in those acronyms, a customer data platform, a little bit different, the CRM, not to be confused with that terminology and the platform itself, but it's very important to understand the value of it, because it really puts together not just that first-party data and things that you, but collates everything that you can gather, right, and tries to provide you with the real business analytics. So all your transactional data, right, needs to be there. But those transactional data and your operational data stores, they're built for resiliency, high throughput, high response times, and you need those databases and the data structures. But you got to put them somewhere else into some different systems that are built more for analytics, right, for machine learning, for AI, and things of analytical, statistical kind of analysis, right? So, like I said, we're moving into putting all our data into CDP. Once we do that, obviously, all of the data will be joined, enriched with the Clickstream data in order to really become, a place where our marketing team, the business teams can go in and create the campaigns, really understand the behavior of customers, their affinities, come up with them actionable insights, right? And our goal in the future is to enable a level of marketing automation in the future, because that's the only way to do that is to have the right data architecture and the right data strategy.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting those. And I think it's really important to think about CDPs. And it sounds like it's kind of the place where data comes together so you can apply intelligence to it and get insights from it that then you can use to both understand your customers as well as figure out how you want to build your program going forward and optimize the program.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And Ramki, maybe we can get your take on the same question. How does Starbucks approach knowledge of the customer and how do you manage that data?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would first briefly touch upon the data part of it and then get onto the challenges around managing that. In terms of what data is really required to manage your loyalty program, again, it's very subjective. So what might be relevant for one company might not be relevant for another company. And the kind of information from a customer lens of things might also be very different from one company to another. So I wanted to caveat that right off the bat, right? As it pertains to the customer data, like broadly, I would categorize it into two buckets. One is what are the foundational data elements that are required? And second one is what I might characterize as supplemental data elements that might be required towards enriching the experience from a personalization angle. So in terms of the foundational elements, as far as the Starbucks loyalty program goes, there are some things which are table stakes, right? So we provide a differentiated earning rate depending on the payment mechanism used. So we would need to know what those payment mechanisms are, whether it's a credit card, debit card, stored value card, or Starbucks Rewards Visa card. So that's something basic. Then the number of stars being accrued is also important because we would need to provide the redemption mechanisms based on the star balance that the customer has. Also, there are special events that I alluded to, such as Double Star Day, Happy Hour, Birthday, etc. These are what I call as moments or events, which are, again, integral towards providing the right experience for customers. So these are all the foundational elements of it. Then comes the supplemental elements in terms of what's really required to enhance that experience from a personalization angle. So Starbucks does provide our customers a very gamified experience towards earning bonus stars. So this might require additional information, such as the email of the customer, so that we can mail them with the relevant offers. If it's an email-based channel for the app, the customer would see those personalized offers in the app itself as they fire up the app. The purchase history information is a very important aspect. The day of the purchase that the customer is making, the time of the purchase, the specific product being purchased, what's the ticket value of that purchase? All these are integral towards shaping this gamified experience for customers. So as a simple case, an example, right? You might get an offer, June, that might say, hey, visit 3 days in a row after before 11 a.m. this week and earn 150 bonus stars, right? So towards making this happen, we need to know, are you coming 3 days in a row? Are you coming before 11 a.m.? What are the kind of products that you're purchasing, and are they qualified products if there are qualifications around it, and things like that. So this is a classic example of a personalized experience wherein we need to know a little bit more than what is conventionally available to shape that experience for you as a customer. So those are the elements from a data angle. In terms of challenges, Ludo beautifully covered the technical side of things and what it's required to architect. I will touch a little bit from a broader landscape or an industry aspect of things, right? So privacy is a big and a fast evolving theme. A couple of years back in Europe, they had a broader privacy regulation, which provided more control to the customers in terms of managing their data. It was called the GDPR, Global Data and Privacy Regulation. So we are seeing continuation of that in US as well, wherein California has enacted new laws. It's called CCPA. And Virginia State is also following very soon. It's called Virginia Consumer Data Protection Act, which again provides more leverage and power to the customer to understand how are different brands using my data? What is it getting used for? Is it getting shared with other third-party providers, etc.? So that's one big development that's fast evolving that would have a big implication on how we shape these experiences for customers and what can and cannot we collect from our customers. The other big development is around the Apple's privacy policy. So Apple has taken a big shift in its privacy outlook with iOS 14, wherein customers, every brand would need to get the consent of the customers towards tracking their information, and that's a mandate. So that would again mean, that would again have a huge ramifications on how we track the customer information, what can we gather from them, and what is acceptable. So really the net sum of where I'm going with this conversation is that there needs to be a very fine balance between respecting customers' privacy in light of all these emerging developments, as well as providing them a good experience with personalization. And that's a thin line to walk and something that needs to be carefully treaded. So that's a big part of how the privacy landscape is evolving and how it plays in hand with the personalization elements we are talking about.
Yeah, that was very interesting, Ramki. Thanks for bringing up this whole concept of, wanting to build a personalized program, but at the same time, we have got this changing landscape in terms of all the laws and the rules that are going into place. So that's tough. Good things to know. Let's move to another topic that I'd love to hear you all talk on, which is these programs take a lot of resources and they're not easy to put together. And once you've created it, you may have, in fact, created a monster because they take even more work. You've got to keep them up and you've got to keep optimizing and you've got to keep them up to date. Just like Luba was saying, like it wasn't enough that they just created a data architecture. Now they need to optimize it and make some changes. So I'm wondering, how do you make decisions about using internal and external resources for your loyalty program? And maybe we can kick it off, Maria, with you. Do you have any insights to share with us on that topic?
I do, and I'll share with the audience kind of my lens. So before I came into the industry that I'm in, I spent 20 some years in retail, directly working inside a brand, and then also consulting from a technology side. And so working with a lot of large enterprise brands that have been named today, looking at their strategy and figuring out what is that experience that's delivered, loyalty being a really key piece of it. Where I always start and kind of pulling the conversation up is really starting with, the strategy. What is the strategy? What is the business model of the organization? Because there's going to come a point in time in that conversation around what is core and what's core capability to the organization. And I think we heard that earlier in some of the conversation from my counterparts on the panel. But that discussion around what's core capability, what is that competitive advantage, the differentiation, and then from there in determining the what is the overall experience and then getting into the how. And to me, once you start moving into the how, then you can start slicing into that conversation of build, buy, resourcing, etc. And in my experience working with a number of brands, once they're able to get to that level of conversation, it starts to become really clear in terms of the organization and the overall strategy, and places where there are certain things that really need to be within the organization, keyed into like the data platform strategy conversation, because that is a critical portion of what helps to differentiate the brand. And so to me, that's a really important part of making that decision. Now, once you get to the actual resources, to me, that is really kind of that tactical execution where you can make some decisions on capacity. So where I'm really focused, though, is on the capability for the organization and where is that placed within the priorities. And what I have found is, most of your really big brands of some of these places where it is the differentiator, there are very strategic things that are occurring. A lot of those core capabilities are brought into the organization. You may have to supplement with some buy for things that are maybe is somewhat not a differentiation in terms of feature function and needs within, but are brought in together to help go and orchestrate the all-up experience from that standpoint. And so I think, for all brands, I would definitely urge you to start their strategy experience, defining the what, looking at your core capabilities before you even start talking about the how, right? The build, buy, resourcing, etc.
Yeah, that's great advice and very pragmatic, makes total sense. I want to ask Lubo to share from his perspective, which is now the building out the technology, how you approach that.
Thanks, June. So it's kind of really following up to what Maria said, which is that there's the precursory parts to how do you staff and how do you choose the build versus buy. But I'll dig a little bit into, how do you then choose that? Because to me, there's multiple, it's a multifaceted decisions, right? So first is, if the strategy is set, then it comes to an architecture and technology organizations that we're looking at saying, okay, well, if we want to build something, right, then it has to be a differentiator where we need to put our resources, and we believe is something that we want to, fine tune and kind of build in a way that is different than what's out in the market, right? Then you have two different branches from there, which you're saying, well, do I really have the skill and can I attract the skill set, to be able to build this effectively, right? So then you either talking about, okay, well, I got to talk, to specific organizations right there in that space and build an SI, bring an SI that can actually build it for me while I'm also building that in-house knowledge, because you really don't want to be in a position where an external agency comes and build it for you and then you don't have a support mechanism for it, right? So that's probably the worst case scenario. The other area is the buy process, which I think, again, there's like two paths, right? So you're saying, well, this is not necessarily a differentiator or not necessarily a differentiator right now, or I don't have the means to build this. I want to have a speed to market, so I'm going to go with buy, right? At that point of time, you got to take a look at those two paths. So I'm buying it for which reason? I'm buying it because it is a commodity, right? And it's something that I just want to spend some money, put the capability in there and need the speed to market, right? Or I'm buying it because this is truly actually, I think it is a differentiator, but right now I don't have the time to build it. I want to build my internal organization, so I'm going to buy something because I can get it done, right? While I'm doing these other things to prepare my organization for the future. And then I'm going to sunset that software, building in-house, where again, the build challenges come again. So to me, it's like I said, it's a multifaceted decision. It starts with the build versus buy, right? But it has to always take into account what can you bring to the organization quickly, how you get at that speed to market so the organizations can get the value out of the capabilities, but then also how do you make sure that you can provide a level of flexibility and customizations and really own that space, so you're not basically becoming just another organization that has the same features and functionality like everybody else.
Okay, thank you very much. Those are helpful, and hopefully if you're thinking about how do I get this done, that's some very pragmatic advice from both of you. I think that should help. Eugene, I want to turn to you now and ask you about AI, because I know that I've been out there reading about loyalty programs and people are talking about AI and how it factors into loyalty programs. And I'd love to get your thoughts on how AI does factor into loyalty programs, or in fact could factor into loyalty programs. So can you share your thoughts with us?
Well, of course, AI is a hot topic, and it is eating the world in terms that many things which we traditionally did with business rules, with heuristics, some sort of like manual decision making, are now possible to automate and optimize using AI. And the loyalty is not an exception here. So loyalty essentially is all about like moving the customer through this ladder, like from the from the prospect to the customer to the kind of advocate. And ideally, we want to have our customers to be an advocate, and we have a lot of decisions to make on every step of this journey. We have to decide, for example, whom to enroll to this loyalty program. And if we have a multiple layers of this or tiers of this loyalty program, we have to do a targeting. We need to offer, we don't want to offer the kind of unlimited coffee drinking to people who barely drink any coffee, right? Or we don't want to send the promotion to the kind of Nike shoes to people who never run. This is something which is very important, and slicing and dicing and scoring your customer base to understand whom to promote is an obvious zone of application of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Second, pretty obvious use case here is fraud detection, because of course people will take advantage of your loyalty programs, and as Luba said, it's a concern. And right now, many organizations are tracking those anomalies using the business rules. They're saying, okay, all of a sudden, like some customer got 500 more points in a day. It's suspicious. Let's review it and let's try to kind of manually address that. So this is where artificial intelligence again can help, because there are very sophisticated and powerful and well-known and already kind of proven algorithms on anomaly detection and fraud detection, which are used everywhere, and they also can be employed for those loyalty programs to automate those decisions. On the next level, of course, know your customer. And by knowing your customer, that means that you have a lot of decisions to make, and you know some basic information about your customer, how to enrich it. How can we, for example, detect people who are snowbirds and they are kind of moving around the country, and therefore it doesn't make sense to promote anything related to winter clothes to them, because like we are always like fleeing from the winter. And how do we understand the propensity of a customer towards a particular brand or particular product type? And how can we use that in, for example, promoting a particular redeemable options to them or exclusive products which you want to select? This mechanism of decision, of course, it can, and it currently is automated using some business rules, or maybe some people are doing manual work. But here, the artificial intelligence again can lend a hand and optimize and automate further those decisions. We can also do things like estimating lifetime customer value, right? CLTV, customer lifetime value. And this is a very important metric by which we can decide how deeply we want to please the customer, like what is the customer reward multiplier. And this also can become a very powerful estimation. Like you're trying to predict the kind of schedule of their purchases, and then you can estimate the customer lifetime value. And moving it to the next level, you always can think about rewarding customers not only for transactional direct actions, but also for indirect things. Customers are writing a positive review about your product somewhere on the website. You can detect sentiment, and then you can reward customer for that. Customer is promoting your product on the social media and tagging your product or tagging your company, and you can detect that, and you can reward this behavior, moving your customer gradually to the level of ambassador, where it starts to promote your company. And this is like where it becomes really interesting, and where machine learning can scale it out, because like no amount of people can detect this behavior, and no amount of rules can reliably classify those things. And on the final level of sophistication, at least from what we see right now, there is a strategic optimization of customer journey. Instead of like looking very myopic in the next like promotion which you want to give to the customer, or the next appeasement which you want to give to the customer, what you're doing is like you're using reinforcement learning to try to analyze the whole journey as one. And that gives you the kind of ability to strategically optimize over a long period of time. Instead of doing a tactically best next step, you are doing the next best thing, which takes into account the whole history of the relationship with the customer and whole target relationship, again moving customer up on this ladder and doing the right thing to please the customer and kind of win this loyalty. So a lot of possible things, and I think that the future of artificial intelligence and loyalty is pretty bright.
That was great. That was like a mini seminar, Eugene, mini seminar on how to use AI. I loved it. That was great, and really appreciate your comments. Look, I'm so surprised, but we're just about out of time, and it just flew by today. This was such an interesting conversation. I want to thank our panelists. You guys were phenomenal, and I wish we had a few more hours to spend. Maybe we'll do another sequel to this one at some time in the future. I know there's so much more that you could share with us, but we thank you for everything you shared today, and you did it so wonderfully well. Really appreciate that. I also want to thank Grid Dynamics for hosting this fantastic webinar, but most of all, I want to thank you, our audience. thank all of you so much for taking time out of your day and spending an hour with us. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you again soon on another Grid Dynamics webinar. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, June. Thanks all.
Thank you, guys.
everyone.
Thank you, panel. Thank you, audience.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.